See Family Records. Learn to find your family in the 1940 Census records. What can be found? Information on homes, names, relationships, gender, race, age, marriage, education, birth, immigration, employment, language, veterans, and Social Security. Here's a copy of the 1940 page from Iron, Missouri, sheet number 1B, edition 47-6, and it was taken on May 3rd, 1940 by Lawrence B. Townsend. We will study Lydia Thompson that appears on line 68 of this page and a few other Lydia Thompsons in other censuses in 1940. Lydia Thompson on line 68 is listed as mother-in-law. So from this we see that she is living with William and Bertha Goetz. Bertha is likely her daughter. Glancing up the page, we see Quincy Thompson and his family listed as the family above. This is probably her son, his wife, and children. More records would need to be found to prove this relationship, but from this census we find names to look for in other records. In some of the census records, the census taker wrote in the street that the family lived in. On this page, it is blank. The next slide will show an example of this filled in. This is the only census that asks where a person lived 5 years previously. On this page, we see that Bertha, Lydia, and Quincy and his family lived in the same place. William Goetz lived in St. Louis, Missouri. There is a Lydia Thompson living in Carroll, Kentucky. In this example, we see that the census taker wrote down that they lived on East Fort Locust Road. Lydia Thompson living in Carroll, Kentucky is listed with her husband Charles. They own their home and the value of their home is $300 and it is a farm, as we see from the word yes. For some people they rent and the cost of their rent is listed. Below are the instructions for value of home on the bottom of the census page. The relationship is given to the head of the household. Lydia is listed as mother-in-law to William Goetz, head of household. Bertha is listed as his wife. Other relationships you might see are son, daughter, niece, nephew, aunt, uncle, mother, father, etc. If a person is not related, it might state servant, laborer, etc. This column asks if they are male or female. Sometimes the census takers wrote the wrong gender. Other records need to be found to verify the correct gender. Here we see that Lydia Thompson and everyone else on the page is white. At the bottom of each census page, there's a section that tells what the census taker was to write in for the different races. This census asks for the age of each person. This Lydia is listed as age 65. Her age of birth can be estimated by subtracting 65 from 1940. Lydia was born approximately in 1875. Looking at the next page, after Lydia Thompson in Iron, Missouri, we find a Norma Jean born 4/12. Using the age chart at the bottom of the page, we see that Norma Jean was born November of 1939. Notice that the chart states that if a child was born after April 1st, 1940, they are not to be listed on the census. A person's marriage status is given. Lydia is listed as WD or widow. Her daughter, Bertha, is listed as M for married. Quincy's children are listed as S for single. The other status might be D for divorced. The 1940 census asks if a person was attending school. For Lydia, it says no. She was not attending school. Quincy's children, though, state yes, and then give their grade in school. Leola was in 8th grade, Wilbur in 7th, etc. Below is the instructions listed at the bottom of the census page that gives instructions for the year and school of the person listed. Earlier we saw that we could estimate one's birth from the age given. There is also a column that asks where a person was born. On this census, we see that everyone was born in Missouri. Immigration. At the bottom of the page are the instructions for citizenship. NA was naturalized. All paperwork for citizenship was complete. PA was papers. Papers for citizens had been started. AL, alien. No paperwork for the citizenship had been started. AMCIT. They were an American citizen but were born in another country. Immigration. This Lydia Thompson, found in Wheaton, DuPage County, Illinois, states she was born in England. There is another column that says NA, which states she was a naturalized citizen. From this information, we know to search for immigration records for Lydia coming from England. Her husband was from Scotland and also was a naturalized citizen. There may be naturalization papers for both Lydia and her husband James, but often the wife became a citizen once her husband became a naturalized citizen, so it would be best to search for naturalization papers for her husband first. Employment. This section asks questions about a person's employment. The question asks if the person worked for a private or public business. Were they seeking work? Do they have work? Other work? Hours worked the week before the census? How long they have been unemployed? What is their occupation? What industry do they work in? What class of work? Weeks they worked in 1939. What was their income? And farm schedule. The farm schedule number is the order in which the farm was visited by the census taker. The employment section has 3 separate instructions to explain what these questions were asking. These instructions are found at the bottom of each census page. Supplementary questions. People on line 55 and 68 were asked more questions than the other people. Their names and the extra questions appear at the bottom of each page. Above is Lydia Thompson, that was living in Iron County, Missouri in 1940. She was person 68 on the census sheet. This section asks where the person's parents were born. This section asks what the person's native language is. This section asks about military service. To the right are the instructions found at the bottom of the page for the military section. This section asks about Social Security. Does this person have a Social Security number? Were deductions made for Social Security or railroad retirement from wages or salary? If deductions were made, was it all, half, or less than half? This section asks more questions about employment. Usual occupation, usual industry, usual class of worker. To the right are the instructions for column 47. This section asks questions of women who have been married. Has this person been married more than one time? Age at first marriage, number of children ever born, no stillborn. We see that Lydia Thompson had been married 3 times. She was first married at age 18, and she has a total of 3 children. The 1940 Census Challenge. See if you can find a relative in the 1940 census, a person born in another country, a person who was naturalized or was in the process of being naturalized, a person attending college, a person having served in a war, a person on line 55 or 68. The end.